Good morning. My name is Alex Langer, and I'm CEO of Madre Gold and Silver. Madre is a development company focused on the restart of the fully permitted La Guitarra silver and gold mine located about 120 kilometers just southwest of Mexico City.
Good to see you, Alex. And thanks for taking the call and making the time for us, okay? You're here to help me solve a problem, right? We've been reaching out to lots of Mexican silver companies, about 80% of them Canadian. They are struggling at the moment. They're struggling with not just capital markets, but specifically about what's happening down in Mexico. Maybe give me a sense of, your read of Mexico and mining there at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. So Mexico as a country, obviously a lot of their GDP comes from mining, oil and gas. Latin America right now, we kind of see kind of this left side coming up and politicians kind of pandering towards those groups. And we saw it in South America when I was part of Millennial Lithium. We were in Argentina, and at that time, Argentina was the best mining jurisdiction in all of South America, which was a little scary. So we kind of foresaw that a little bit within Mexico itself. So when we had an opportunity to acquire the La Guitarra mine, which is fully permitted and not really needing to deal with a lot of those other issues where if you're trying to permit an open pit right now, it would be extraordinarily difficult. I think it would be impossible during this administration. That's one of the reasons why we went for a fully permitted former producing mine where the permits were in place, as opposed to going through that whole rigmarole, which really takes a lot of time and a lot of money. And especially in these capital markets right now, which can be really challenging, having that as a leg up really de-risks the project. And that's the key for anything we're doing. It's wealth creation with any of these companies.
Right. And just stick with Mexico at the moment. Obviously, there's the kind of... We've been writing about and hearing about, socialist undertones for the last 3-4 years in South America more broadly, and as you say, rippling up to Mexico as well. What is it that you're having to deal with in country in terms of what are the demands? Are they that onerous, or is it just a case of it's an uncertainty around what specifically?
It's uncertainty, and the market absolutely hates uncertainty. So that's the issue. A lot of the big majors, we're chatting quite a few of them, and they've stopped exploring right now. Some of the biggest names, you'd be surprised, they have big, large projects. Obviously, they're producing, they're doing really well, especially with these metal prices. That's amazing. But in terms of their exploration dollar, they're not spending it in the ground. They're spending it lobbying, actually. So I think there's going to be, some changes to what's coming. But for them, the focus is just on the current production and then lobbying the government to, remove some of those restrictions for newer projects moving forward.
Right. Okay. So let's come back to your project specifically and the kind of workarounds that you have, I guess, engineered into the asset and the plan for that asset. Okay. Permit in place. So big tick for that. What else was important to you when you were looking for, the target?
Yeah, so I guess it kind of goes back to my time at Canaccord. So I spent the beginning of my career at Canaccord, and during that time I did the IPOs for a couple of successful silver companies, one in particular Endeavor Silver as well as Fortuna. So during that time, got really comfortable with Mexico, really got comfortable with silver. So when we started Sierra Madre, about 5-6 years ago, there really wasn't much of an investable silver opportunity that you could, invest early stage, grow through production, grow through ounces in the ground, and continue to grow. So the La Guitarra asset, which really appealed to us, was that it's a whole district. We're not just talking about one smaller mine that you can get up and running, and there could be complications with that, but it's literally a whole district with incredible exploration potential. It's about 40,000 hectares. There's about 7 producing mines on site. So the opportunity to grow into mid-tier just from one asset was very, very appealing to us.
Right, but you got to fund all of that, right? So well and good coming as a junior and saying we've got district, we've got opportunity here. It's how do you get this thing funded? So, and knowing what's coming down the line, investors go, it can be a bit nervous. Massive capex requirements, sustaining capital. It's hard.
Absolutely. And so with this opportunity, again, it's pretty much built for us. If you wanted to replicate a 500 ton per day facility, 60 to 80 million US. There's over 50 kilometers of underground, development. That's another 40 million US easily. 236,000 meters of drilling have been done across the project. So you have this huge head start, and there's a lot of capital that Sierra Madre is not going to need to get back into production. So when we acquired the mine, I guess just over a year ago, it took a while to get through the regulatory process, but we told the market it was only going to cost us about 10 to 12 million US dollars. And we've been actively spending money. We spent about 10 million so far, and we're kind of bringing that number down. So again, the other thing that was quite attractive for us was, again, not having to go back to the market constantly. Once we're able to get back into production, generate cash flows, we're able to use that capital, that excess capital for exploration to explore the rest of the project and make this quite a bit larger.
It is kind of interesting, actually, if you look at the typical Canadian model. It's like drill to the edge of the envelope, work out how big this thing is, then hopefully flip it or have to go through the onerous process of raising capital. That's not attractive in this market. You're seeing lots of people sort of changing their plan, their strategy, their tactics. I mean, for you, do you feel sort of do you feel that you actually made the right choice in a market like this? Has it protected
it's
you?
so true. Yeah, absolutely. So this was always our strategy for the last 4 or 5 years was production. Especially, I think, what was interesting to me was the metal price. Today at $22, $23 silver, it's amazing. Like there's a lot of money that you can be made at these prices. We look at some of the Australian miners that have costs in Australian dollars. They're producing revenues hand over fist. So it's amazing. So that was always our plan. We had a lot of people say, why don't you just go, drill it, spend 10, 20, $30 million in the ground, make something much, much bigger. And then, the market will give you a huge valuation. I wasn't too worried about that. I want to build wealth here. And for us, again, we're some of the largest shareholders, management and founders. We still own over 21% of the company. So every share is dilutive. So if we're able to get into production, generate cash flows, and then explore it, still build that company, but doing it with less dilution, it's very attractive.
Okay, so we see it's coming up to tax loss season over there, right?
Yeah.
So people are like looking through the portfolios, and it's a sea of red. It's a train wreck down there. But they are. There's a little bit of nervousness around what the Fed does and what next year holds. Are we in recession, not recession, etc. But people will be redeploying their capital towards assets with strong fundamentals. So how do investors today in today's market value companies? How should they be valuing companies?
That's a great question. So whenever I was on the other side and I'm an investor, I have a decent sized portfolio and I invest in various sectors, things like that. So what I look for generally is best in class. So if you're looking, whether it's lithium, whether it's silver or gold, whether it's copper, I want something that has the potential for large resource, but also whether it be production or quick to production. And those are the first ones that move. Whenever we see a bull market in any type of commodity, any type of market, those are the ones that move first. So those are the opportunities you want to be looking at.
Right. Okay. And what about silver? Let's talk to me about silver. It's got a sort of erratic reputation somewhat. Yes, it follows gold violently sometimes, and others not, right? So it's been a tough space for precious metal for the last 3 years. What's the future for silver?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I've always liked silver. I also like gold, obviously. What I love about silver, it's not just a store of value, as you see with gold. It's also used in a lot of processes. And right now, obviously the EV thematic is growing. Solar panels. I think I read somewhere that the amount of silver going to be used now, what's being used in about 10 years, 50% of all silver use around the world would just be solar panels. So you have this, manufacturing component of silver, not just store value. So you get a bit of both, which is great. I've also seen, incredible silver bull runs, again, with Fortuna and with Endeavor, where the share price is, appreciated immensely, and it was really on the back of silver. So you still have these silver bugs that, believe the price is going to go sky high, which would be amazing. I'm not discounting that, and it would be wonderful for us. But again, at these prices, I see the usage growing no matter what. Industrial is important, and it's still always going to be a store of value under some terms. So you get a bit of both. What's great about Mexico is it is the largest producer of silver in the world. There aren't that many primary silver mines, which is one of the advantages of Sierra Madre. A lot of them are, lumped in, whether it's a lead zinc concentrate or something like that. So to have a primary silver mine really allows us to control our costs a little better. Also gives us a better upside in terms of silver appreciation down the road.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Okay. And I think so. Again, generally, just going to finish off for investors here. You've described your model and why you chose that, and I'm sure there's a few explorers in Mexico and elsewhere wishing that they were following likewise. How, again, do you see this market going out? Clearly, there's going to be a shakeout. There's either going to be companies that go under. There's going to be some M&A. There's going to be some spin-outs, farm-ins, the usual stuff of just changing the story and changing the narrative just to survive. But for Mexico, are you positive about what the future holds?
I think so. So a few things on that. There's too many pupcos out there, to be honest. I've said this before, and I'll say it again. There are too many companies. There's been a number of these cycles. A few of them go under. I'm always hoping it's more, but it never happens. For whatever reason, there'll be another bump up, whether it's cannabis or something along those lines that save a lot of these companies and manager teams, unfortunately, but it does happen. M&A, I think, is going to be an important factor moving forward. I know some of the bigger firms are still actively looking. They like Mexico. Again, even though there are some regulatory issues on developing a new mine, you can still get things done. It's the same as anywhere else in the world. What's great about Mexico is it's usually not politicized. It is more merit-based. As long as you do environmental engineering, that's great. You can push these projects forward. So I see an opportunity where, if I had a bunch of cash right now, I'd be buying up quite a few Mexican assets personally. I think, government changes, things change, and it is such a big part of the Mexican economy. Mining is huge, and they can't stop it. Tourism is also very important, obviously, but mining is such a big factor, and these jobs pay so well. And the way that people mine nowadays is so much different from long ago, and environmental issues or anything like that are really gone in terms of doing things properly.